Did an article published by Forbes support the idea that mRNA COVID-19 vaccines directly modify DNA? Not exactly. Although the headline, "Yes, the vaccine changes your DNA a tiny bit, that's a good thing," was posted on the website. The title of the article was changed shortly after its publication to better reflect the contents of the article. And while some of the content of the article was revised after publication, it never had stated that mRNA vaccination directly alters one's DNA. Lead Stories spoke with immunology experts who explained that the process described in the article would occur whether or not a vaccination involved mRNA. The claim appeared in an Instagram post on December 1, 2021, that showed a quote retweet from Twitter of the "Change Your DNA" article headline. The quote retweet read, quote, "Pretty sure I got fact-checked for saying this months ago. It's fine, it's just a little gene therapy." End quote. This is how the post looked on December 3, 2021. Quote, "View this post on Instagram." A post shared by Ian Smith. Zucked at 402 plus 122K, at Ian Smith Fitness Returns. End quote. Source: Instagram screenshot taken on Friday, 3/18/27/221 UTC. Lead Stories has previously debunked the claim that mRNA COVID-19 vaccines modify DNA in several fact-checks, including here, and here. A resource from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, titled, "Understanding mRNA COVID-19 Vaccines," states, quote, "mRNA never enters the nucleus of the cell where our DNA, genetic material, is located, so it cannot change or influence our genes." End quote. The National Human Genome Research Institute, NHGRI, describes mRNA as, quote, "a single-stranded RNA molecule that is complementary to one of the DNA strands of a gene. The mRNA is an RNA version of the gene that leaves the cell nucleus and moves to the cytoplasm where proteins are made." End quote. During a phone call with Lead Stories on December 2, 2021, Otto Young, a professor of medicine at UCLA who primarily researches viral immunology, discussed why RNA is so short-lived in a cell. Quote, "RNA is a temporary material, so it is not intended to last in the cell. So it literally lasts for minutes or hours and then it decays, it's gone. And that's important and that's intentional, because a cell needs to be able to make proteins and stop making proteins. It needs to be able to control, right? So if the RNA lasts forever, that would be a problem because the cell cannot turn off making that protein." End quote. Yang explained that RNA goes in one direction, and cannot create DNA. Quote, "So in a normal cell in a person, there's an enzyme to make DNA from DNA, and there's an enzyme to make RNA from DNA, and that's it. There's no enzyme to make DNA from RNA." End quote. Yang then described what happens when someone is injected with RNA. Quote, "The fats around the RNA molecule basically fuse with the fats in the membrane of the cell and the RNA is delivered into the cytoplasm, which is where RNA goes when it comes out of the nucleus of the cell, too. So from the standpoint of the cell, it's basically just some genetic material that needs to be used to make proteins. The cell doesn't know where the RNA came from. It's just the blueprint that is used to make proteins, and so here it is, we're gonna make the protein. And so that's how it works. And that RNA, again, is temporary. It's not going to turn into DNA, and it's only gonna last a short amount of time before it degrades. Because that's the normal biology of what happens." End quote. Nicholas Pullen, an associate professor of biological sciences at the University of Northern Colorado who conducts research in immunology, told Lead Stories via email on December 2, 2021, that the Instagram post is an irrelevant comparison. The user has come to apples to oranges. Quote, "Gene therapy, intentionally changing and or replacing specific sequences of DNA with an outside sequence, as they allude to, has nothing to do with vaccines." End quote. The Forbes article, which is now titled, "COVID Vaccines Don't Alter Your DNA. They help choose cells to strengthen your immune response," is mostly the author's attempt to explain V-D-J recombination, a process that occurs in the adaptive immune system, a subsystem of the immune system. According to Nature.com, V-D J recombination is, quote, the process by which T cells and B cells randomly assemble different gene segments, known as variable, V, diversity, D, and joining, J, genes, in order to generate unique receptors, known as antigen receptors, that can collectively recognize many different types of molecule. End quote. V, D, J recombination assists in the immune system's recognition of foreign or toxic substances.